Sup folks, I'm the Demon Bard, and today we'll be talking about the cult classic animated feature from 1993, Ninja Scroll. Yeah, we're talking about anime for the very first. No, don't go. I promise this will be worth your while. All right. I'm gonna be talking about Legend of the Overfiend by episode 10. Okay, in all seriousness, I picked Ninja Scroll because it showcases all that is great and all that is not so great about dark fantasy. The movie was made by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who you may know from his previous work, Wicked City, which in all likeliness we'll also be talking about in the future. So, what's the plot of Ninja Scroll? In some vague year of the Tokugawa period, a wandering ninja called Kibagami Jubei, loosely based off the historical figure of Yagyu Jubei, gets roped into fighting the Demons of Kimon, a group of diabolical ninjas with weird powers, led by a dude named Lord Gemma, with whom Kibagami Jubei has some past with. The plot is straightforward, but it's honestly pretty good. It escalates pretty well with a number of reveals, and it has a fairly strong historical basis. See, there's a lot which is to know about the real-life history of Yagyu Jubei, which has made him something of a pretty popular folk hero in Japan, and one of the nation's biggest fountains of rip-offs. You know, right up there with like Miyamoto Musashi and Oda Nobunaga. So, not only is the main character based off of, an actual guy who actually existed, but also the base of the plot is surprisingly kinda realistic. You see, when Ieyasu Tokugawa unified Japan, he didn't do so without making a lot of enemies. So the idea that there would be a group of, ninjas serving someone who wants him dead isn't that far-fetched, despite, all the magic powers and such. So let's talk about the characters, starting by Jubei himself. See, this is the kind of motherfucker that I really like. We're introduced to him in this gorgeous action scene that showcases him as a swordsman and immediately lets us know that he's kind of a big badass. And we're also shown that there's more to him than just his self-centered jerk attitude that he's shown to have at first. While he's at first motivated by greed, it soon turns into a will to survive, and then to bloody vengeance. You see, Jubei is shown to actually legitimately care about the larger world around him, and to be willing to do the right thing, even if it comes at a cost. He just has this standoffish attitude, like this, I don't really care about what's going on, I just want to get paid, that actually contrasts him really well for a major antagonist. Another thing that makes Jubei a good protagonist is that he's really just a dude. Although he can seemingly shoot razor wind out of his sword and he's a fucking Ashina, this is more of a stylistic choice on the artist's part than some supernatural skill. As such, when he goes up against the monstrous demons of Kimon, he's always at a disadvantage. The animation of the fights really sells this, and Jubei always seems like he's, fighting for his life rather than completely dominating the fight. Jubei's design is also pretty great, as are basically all of the character designs in this movie. He wears simple garbs with drab colors that highlight the fact that he's a wanderer. His long, loose hair gives him more of a feral look, and his simple, unadorned katana let us know that it's the hand that makes the sword deadly, not the other way around. Throughout most of the movie, he wears very neutral colors, but towards the end, he gets blue and red highlights, which have connotations of heroism. In his quest to headbutt the Crimson Chin, Jubei is accompanied by two other characters, the Kunoichi Kagero and this fucking thing called Dakwan. Don't worry, we'll get to him. But first, let me talk about Kagero, because she's a great example of everything that is good and everything that is really bad about female characters in the genre. At the start of the movie, Kagero is a poison taster with absolutely no field experience. Her job is to consume any food or drink that her daimyo would, so that, she can know whether or not it's poison. I think the poison taster is kind of self-explanatory. However, her exposure to toxins have made her completely immune to them, but also have made all the fluids in her body highly poisonous. This actually gives her a rather compelling dilemma at the core of her character. She can never have sex. Ever. anyone even so much as kisses her drops dead. And, you know, unlike Spider-Man and his radioactive semen, she actually feels a great responsibility towards his great power.
Eu entendi a piada agora.
However, the way the movie decides to showcase this is so fucking shitty to the character. Okay, look, I'm a dude, in case you can't notice it. And so, talking about this sort of stuff kinda makes me super uncomfortable, and I kinda feel like I don't really have a right to. But I have to because it's not my job. Okay, so at the time, it was very common for OVAs to be extremely gory and also feature a whole lot of sex and nudity. And this did include a lot of rape scenes. And when you put it together with the genre of dark fantasy, it feels like it's just there to tick off a box for an obligatory atrocity. Okay, so in theory, this is what a lot of people would consider to be a good rape scene, and I feel kind of disgusted just saying that. Because, you see, it serves a purpose to the plot. It showcases Kagero's power, it showcases that the villains are evil, and it showcases Kagero's central conflict. There's just a problem, however. Every single one of those things is done better in some other part of the movie. Kagero's powers could have simply been demonstrated by having her bleed on Tesai, because her blood's also poisonous. And Tesai is a fucking cannibal! We're showing him drinking the blood out of a guy. You can't tell me that, oh, that wouldn't make much sense, he wouldn't do that, because he's literally already done it before. And as for her core conflict, there's already another scene that showcases it much better just from her facial expressions alone. So, this just feels unnecessary. I have this advice that I give to my friends. Whenever they think of writing a rape scene, I always tell them, do something else instead, right? Have the villains cannibalize someone, or kill a baby, or cannibalize a baby. And if that changes nothing about the story, because the only point was to showcase how evil the obviously evil freak of nature is, then you don't need a rape scene. Problem is, the villains are already cannibals, and they have already murdered children. So, shit. So, that scene aside, I do really like Kagero. She's fairly new to the whole ninja business. As such, she's shown making mistakes, but she never comes across as incompetent or stupid. You know, her mistakes are nothing too unrealistic, and her unique skills do save the group fairly often, which honestly only makes me angrier at how often she gets shafted. Not like that. In terms of design, Kagero looks very formal and elegant, at least at first, with the looks that she sports for most of the movie being mostly practical, despite the exposed legs. And I just want to state that fan service and man service are not equivalent for a number of reasons, which I won't be getting into in this video. But Jubei leaves quite a bit of his chest exposed, so showing skin isn't exclusive to the female characters in this movie. As for her colors, blue has connotations of femininity, red of heroism, and white of purity, all of which fit her character very nicely. Okay, so now let's leave the good behind and take out the trash. Dakuan. So, this goblin-looking motherfucker is one of those unlikable, unsympathetic sidekicks that I've seen in a long fucking time. Okay? When he's not composing soundtracks for Dario Argento, he's delirium Kagero, poisoning Jubei to force him to cooperate, and forcing them into compromising positions for his own amusement. And also he looks like a fucking scrotum. He's selfish, he's greedy, and his monk-like looks actually contrast that really, really well. Just like how Jubei and Gamma have deeper motivations than them, that first looks like, this movie utilizes a lot of deceiving appearances. Most of the traps employed by the villains utilize, trickery of some sort. And so having a character who looks like something that he's not actually showcases this pretty well fairly early. Look, I hated Dakwan, but he's the kind of character who I hated for the right reasons. He's a slimy, sleazy scumbag, but that's what he's supposed to be. They didn't make him that way because they were trying to make him funny or endearing. And he does fit in very well with the overall tone and atmosphere of the movie. It's okay for a character to be unlikable, if that's what you're aiming for, even if said character is on the good guy's side, or the good guys, as is most often the case in the genre. Now, I'm not gonna get into detail with each and every demon, or this video is gonna end up taking forever, but the best way to describe them as a whole is as a Metal Gear boss squad on steroids. I mean, there's even a guy who attacks with wasps, for fuck's sake. And for a group of villains whose role is to just have one action scene and then die, they fulfill their roles quite excellently and have some fantastic designs to boot. Each demon provides a very unique challenge to be overcome, none of which can be brute forced through. And I especially like Tsai, despite my complaints about, that scene. Because, I mean, we're introduced to him with him showing Thanos how it's fucking done, and he rips off a dude's arms and drinks his blood, which is metal as fuck. His fleshy form does look like every NTR guy you've ever read. Not that I know what that means. So, I do wish he remained stoned for the whole movie, but I'd also like to bring up Benisato's gorgeous tattoos and Sakuro's facial scars, both of which are quite distinctive among female villains. And Yurimaru's just fucking hot, dude. However, I would like to bring up one line from the dub, which aged about as well as a stale fart, but I mean, it was the 90s, I guess.
Now he's the queen of the devils.
As such, it's quite unfortunate that Gamma, their leader, comes across as quite a bit doofy and not very intimidating. I mean, he's like this huge guy and really strong, but after all the monsters with weird powers that serve him, he's a bit underwhelming. Maybe if he had like a crazy over-the-top weapon, I'd feel differently. But still, the fight scene of him is quite good. Also, we're informed that he's bisexual, but not show any of it. So, I don't know, is he a biconic villain? Does anyone want to reclaim that? I don't know, it's up to you. So, there are other characters, but not really. They're more like props to move the story along. I mean, you could substitute them for literal ninja scrolls and not lose anything. So instead, let's move on to the visuals, because holy shit, this movie's fucking gorgeous. Most of the time. So there are quite a few wonky details, like how the wasps look. A lot of facial animations are really iffy, and the movie realizes a shitload of motion, like a lot of it. This is especially noticeable in a fight scene towards the end, but all of these are cost-cutting methods because the movie's kinda low budget, but still there's so much talent and passion put behind it that the parts that are good are fucking great. And I know all of that because I actually asked a friend who worked in an animation studio, so this is mostly his notes. So for contrast, let's look at more of the action scenes. Especially that initial fight scene. Holy shit, look at how fluid that looks. That shit smells like money, dog. Also, Benesato's snakes. When you take into consideration that this is all drawn by hand, this is a fucking insane amount of detail. The backgrounds are another highlight, and especially how the framing quite proudly displays them. You really get a feel of how gorgeous the Japanese wilds look. When you take the visuals into consideration, along with the soundtrack and the sound effects, you get a very thick, very moody atmosphere that really showcases both beauty in the pastures, the rivers, the cliffs, and also ugliness in the plague-ridden villages and all the carnage that ensues. And to me, this is the real highlight of the movie. How good this atmosphere is. Seriously, just put this film on in the dark and just soak in it. Both the beautiful part and the ugly. It's also worth pointing out that the film's pacing is quite excellent. I mean, this is maybe the fastest hour and a half that I've spent ever. It's a non-stop roller coaster from action scene to action scene, with a few slower scenes to, put a buffer in it. But it works really well. As such, it's quite easy to dismiss Ninja Scroll as a shallow movie. And to be fair, it kind of is. But hey, around here, things are only as shallow as you want them to be. This is why I want to talk about how the movie tackles one of its core themes. Revenge. Yes. You see, Jubei kind of inconveniences Desai. I mean, it's just an eye lost. It's no biggie. Yamato gives explicit orders for Desai to not fuck with this guy. But Desai then goes and fucks with that guy, which results in a death scene that's as gloriously gory as it is awesome. So, before 30 minutes have even passed, this movie has already made a statement. Revenge will take a toll on you. Later on, we learn that Jubei and Gemma have some past beef, and Jubei's really not willing to let go. So, this is gonna get into some pretty major spoilers here. You might want to pause the video and go watch the movie right now, and then come back. Okay. At the end, Jubei gets his revenge, but it costs him everything that he got during the course of the movie. He ends up right back where he started, alone, wandering aimlessly, and without a single coin to his name. And this is actually quite clever, and it's a structure that works really well in film. The first act establishes the theme, the second act reinforces it, and the third act pulls the trigger on our protagonist. This is the kind of thing that really only works on film, because you have each of those segments within about 30 minutes of each other. And the theme itself is handled in a way that only dark fantasy really would. Revenge is shown as being very stupid and unfulfilling, but not pointless. Vengeance is a fuel, but much like gasoline, the fire can get out of hand and burn more than what you intended. And all of that's what makes Ninja Scroll a really good introduction to the genre of dark fantasy. It's got a strong, easy-to-follow premise, a message that's executed very well, and this historical basis makes it much easier to get into when compared to a full-on constructed world. The fact that it's a really solid piece of animation back from its time is a really neat bonus. However, you have to be willing to stomach some really dubious shit happening to its female characters. But if you can get past that, it's a really good movie. So that's all for the episodes, folks. Catch you next time.